My 27-year-old girlfriend, Amy, a 24-year-old female, and I went on our first date around 1.5 years ago. We took things slowly while being exclusive and have been officially dating for 1 year overall. The relationship has been pretty good, minus some small hiccups in communication that she chalks up to her neurodivergence. Amy isn't great with texting, which I thought was a red flag at first until I found out she's like that with almost everyone, including most of her friends and family. To give a little background, Amy and a few of her girlfriends go to this conference a few states over twice per year. It's a 2-day event, which they usually turn into a 5-day vacation because it requires a flight and hotel and is in a nice city. Amy's friend group is typically very active on social media during these trips, posting on their Instagram story during all points, flights, the conference, the beach, etc. This weekend was supposed to be their 3rd time attending. Amy and her friends have had their flights and hotels booked for a few months, confirmed by some of their posts on social media, being excited about having everything booked. Unfortunately, the conference was cancelled, but they already booked everything, so they decided to still enjoy a vacation anyway. My girlfriend and I had a date night last weekend. She was telling me how excited she was for the trip, and all was good. But at the end of the date, I caught a glimpse of Amy's phone. She was on her airline app, and it looked like she was reading cancellation policies. We had a long day, and I was tired and felt like I was snooping or being nosy, so I didn't say anything. During the week, I asked Amy to hang out the day before the flight, emphasizing that I wanted to see her before her trip. Unfortunately, she was meeting up with a group of coworker friends, so she couldn't. No worries. The morning of her flight, I texted her wishing her a safe flight and a happy trip, and she liked my message. We haven't talked since. As I said, she's not a big texter, so we usually don't text much besides planning dates and in emergencies. I figured she was on a trip, so I haven't texted to plan a date. Now, on to the meat of the issue. Amy is supposed to be a few days into her trip, and I noticed none of her friends were posting on Instagram. I thought that was weird because they usually post a lot, but I shrugged it off. That was until tonight. Amy started posting videos of her at a show. It looked fun, and I didn't think twice about it until the ending, where the show host called out, "Thank you," followed by the name of the major city nearby where we live, approximately a 30-minute drive. I looked up the name of the show, and of course, it was in that nearby city this weekend, meaning she wasn't on that vacation after all and never thought to say anything to me about it. I did a little snooping on Venmo and found out that over 2 weeks ago, Amy's friend paid her back the money that Amy had sent her for the hotel and car rental. So, she's known the trip was cancelled for 2 weeks and hasn't said anything to me. Every time I brought it up, she'd avoid the subject. I feel like I'm suddenly spiraling, going crazy overthinking everything lately, trying to see if I've missed any signs. I've already started assuming the worst, and I'm panicking. I'm out of town for the weekend, and I feel like this has totally thrown off my trip. Is it worth a conversation, or is the relationship already over? Is there any reason she would have not said something by now? Even if she tells me the trip was cancelled right when I see her, before I confront her, would that still justify not telling me until after the trip? Please, any advice is greatly appreciated. Thank you. Well, for me, a light like this one would be a deal breaker. Even if she came clean with you when you see her or confront her, the fact is she's known for a while that the trip was cancelled before going and didn't tell you anything about it. If she would have said, "You know what? The trip's cancelled, but I still want to go to this concert over in this other city, and I'd like to go with my friends." No problem. But she lied to you about the conference still being up because she was super excited about going, and she also hid the fact that she was going to go somewhere else the whole time. So yeah, like I said, there's no trust here anymore, at least not for me. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section. And now let's check out the community comments. Blaine says, "Oh, that's a tough one, my dude. I would just go ahead and assume you guys are finished at this point if she can't communicate or even tell you she's going somewhere else. Not someone good to be with." You should honestly give her the same treatment if she tries to talk to you, like her messages and don't even bother. Zero effort. F that. Sanin 12 says, it's not a good look, however one frames it. Even if this was her merely taking some personal time, assuming generously as that, letting you believe she's elsewhere without correcting that idea is concerning. As one last throw of the dice, you could always communicate something direct like, how is the trip going, and see whether she lies, avoids the question, or answers truthfully on the situation. Would she rationalize this as her usual lack of communication? Op responds, well, she knew I'd be out of town this weekend, so if she wanted some personal time, she wouldn't need to fabricate this vacation. I was thinking of doing that, but in person instead of over text. I was thinking after the trip to ask her how it was, what she did, if she has pictures, etc., see how willing she is to commit to the lie and digs a deeper hole. But even if she admits immediately that the trip was cancelled, she still lied to me repeatedly before that. So I don't know. I'm not sure what reason there could be to justify that lying, and if it's really something I could accept. I wouldn't. A non-throwaway says, sure, seems like she pretended the trip was happening to do something else with someone else. That's your worst-case assumption, right? If so, what's her plan? Keep pretending she went. Keep you in the dark. Hope no friend outs her. Pretty stupid. If she's seeing someone else, she should just dump you. Op responds, yeah, that's my assumption. I don't really see any other reason why she would have pretended the trip was still planned, even if I misunderstood the timeline of the trip getting cancelled. Like, if that Venmo payment was for something else, I'd assume she would have told me when I texted her the morning of her flight. I considered that maybe she's trying to get me to dump her, which would make sense. But she's been talking about celebrating my birthday soon, planning a getaway trip together, etc. It'd be weird that she's trying to put in effort and plan future things while wanting to get dumped. But I don't know, everything's so confusing. Cannonball Run says, I'm usually the one here who tells people to avoid jumping to conclusions, ETA, but really hard to avoid that here, frankly. Since she posted it on social media, I would call her right out now. The community is overall telling Op that, of course, this is not okay, and that he should confront her. So now, let's move on to the update to see what OP did next. Hey everyone, I had some DMs asking for an update, so here it is, almost a month after the original post. I was a wreck and spiraling these past few weeks. After being together for nearly 2 years in total, I was too panicked to reach out and ask to see her during the 3 weeks since her planned trip. She hasn't reached out once to me until yesterday, when she casually reached out, like we had just ignored each other for 3 weeks, and asked to see a movie. So, I finally saw her tonight in the car. I asked about her trip, and her facial response was really weird, like she got caught off guard. I'm guessing she was expecting me to forget about it after a few weeks of not seeing her. She just said it was okay, which instantly confirmed my suspicions. I asked her what she had done, and she said she went to that conference one day, which, as I said in my last post, was cancelled, and then went to a show before returning home the day after I made my original post. I asked her which show, and she claimed the show that was in our local city. I was driving at the time, and it was dark out, so I waited to confront her, as I didn't want to get emotional and endanger us. I confronted her for lying about the trip, doubling down and lying about the conference, and tripling down to lie about the show. Her immediate response was to start deflecting. She was saying that if this was making me upset, to imagine how she felt that her conference and trip were cancelled. She said how she was so heartbroken and upset that the conference was cancelled, which was cancelled 5 weeks ago, that she didn't want to talk about it. She kept saying that she doesn't owe it to me or anybody else to tell us about her business and what's going on in her life. I, of course, called her out for gaslighting me, to which her response was that she was not gaslighting me, kind of ironic, I guess. When I talked about how it made me feel that she damaged my trust for her, she again tried to belittle my feelings by rolling her eyes and saying that it was only a show. This conversation ended up opening a much bigger issue in our relationship that I didn't mention in my last post. Generally, Amy treated me really poorly throughout the relationship. She was hot and cold, put zero effort into communication, and it never felt like she made me a priority. She'd give me zero affection or compliments despite drooling and crushing over male celebrities all day. She's made little efforts to connect with me and her family and friends. We've talked about all of this a few times now, and she would always say she was overwhelmed with some new excuse and promised it would get better. I would cave in and agree to work through things, but as expected, things never got better. This time was the same, where she blamed a new job for being overwhelmed and that's why she's been so distant. But this time was different for me. I guess her blatant lie to my face, and your guys' comments in the back of my mind, gave me the power to put my foot down. I broke up with her then and there. She kept begging me for one more chance to think on it for a few days, that she cares about me and didn't intend to hurt me, all that nonsense. But the whole time, I was the one bawling, and there wasn't a tear on her face. It really broke my heart ending things, but I've also really grown to hate myself for putting up with her treatment for so long. I'm hurting a lot right now, and I'm scared to get back into the dating world after 2 years of aging and some weight gain. I really loved her with every bit of my heart, and I'm terrified to picture my life without her. I really want to call her up and give her one final chance to get things right, but I know I'd never forgive myself if she didn't change and broke my heart again. I'm hurting bad, and I could really use some words of encouragement right now. Thank you all. Well, OP, it's only natural to feel this way after a breakup, but you just need to stay steady and on course. It will get better over time. Aging is a part of life, but instead of getting bummed about it, think about it like wine, it only gets better with age. That is, if it is properly preserved. So, if weight gain is a concern for you, hit the gym. Like the great philosopher L. Woods once said, exercise gives you endorphins. Endorphins make you happy. Happy people just don't shoot their husbands, they just don't. So, minus the bit about killing husbands, go and do some exercise, it'll be good for you. On that note, here's wishing you the best in the future, OP. Thanks for sharing, and take care. Now, let's move on to the next post that also has an update. The entitled brother informed me that he would be taking my dog for 3 days without my permission. For those of you who aren't familiar with my stories, I am a 31-year-old female with a manch child, entitled brother, 26, who lives in the house I co-own with my mom. My mom has told me he hasn't until the end of next month to move out. I've been anxiously waiting for him to leave, doing my best to bide my time. But I have finally reached the end of my rope, and for something that I'm not sure is the stroke or the dog that broke the camel's back. Last night, while I was in bed, the entitled brother informed me he would be taking my dog, Spot, for 3 days on some fishing trip. I told him there's no way he could do that. He said he wasn't asking, he was telling me. He said he's my dog too, and that he is entitled to take him whenever he pleases. Here's the thing though, 9 years ago entitled brother demanded a dog. I begged my mom not to, he had one previously but he neglected it, and my mom ended up rehoming it, for which he never let her near the end of it. But of course, she caved, and the same problem persisted. Entitled bro never cared for Spot. I ended up taking over his care, paid for his vet bills, fed him, and took him to get groomed, etc. Things came to a head when we had to move in with family members, and they said we were not allowed to bring a dog. Entitled bro didn't do anything to find Spot a new home, it was my problem. I found him a foster home, where I visited him every day after my college classes ended, and was able to get him back 2 years later when we finally had a place to live again. Additionally, when I moved out of my house for a year, Spot went with me. Spot sleeps with me every night, and has my name on all of his records. He's now 10 and has arthritis. He takes meds for his hips and his stomach and needs frequent bathroom breaks. Oh, and he hates the water, so when little bro said he wasn't asking me, he was telling me. I knew that Spot would be miserable and possibly in pain the whole trip. He hadn't asked or even mentioned taking Spot before, so he is due for a refill on his pills tomorrow. Had I known, I would have gotten the refill sooner. I tried telling him Spot needs a lot of care, and he said, yeah, so just give me everything he needs. I was so irritated. You wait until the night before to tell me this. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. I could have just taken him, let you panic, but I was being nice, telling you ahead of time. That did it. I don't know why, but every alarm bell went off in my head. I grabbed my purse, put on my slippers, and told Spot to get in the car. I drove to my fiancé's house and slept here last night. I was going to move into my fiancé's house this summer, but now I'm asking myself, why the hell am I waiting? Everyone keeps asking me why I stay home, and right now, I can't remember any of the reasons I had before. I'm done. My mom is staying out of it right now, and I'm glad because I genuinely don't care what she has to say. I know she doesn't want me to go, but I just can't take entitled bro's little power trips. He can do whatever he wants to the house, bunching holes in the walls, kicking the appliances, calling the house a dump, but I draw the line at him taking my dog without permission. That's my baby, and I'm not going to just stand by while he does whatever he wants with my pet when I explicitly told him no. Something that he rarely hears. P.S. I occasionally have asked Bro to let Spot out for bathroom breaks since he doesn't work until the afternoon, and his response is always that he's too busy to do that. He has given me no reason to trust him to care for my dog for even a few hours, let alone 3 days on a fishing trip. Well done, OP, responsible pet ownership. You take care of Spot, he's your dog. Your name is on his record, so if he does take Spot, I believe you would be able to file charges. Anyways, we have an update, so let's move on with that to see how this story ends. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for all of their support, well wishes, and for reaching out to check on me and Spot. It was such a relief to know that so many of you have had the same instinctual reaction to my situation. After many months, I finally have an update for you all. Entitled Bro has finally moved out. However, he didn't move out until the end of July. He was supposed to move out by May 31st, but my mother allowed him to push the date back twice. I was not pleased, but since I moved out abruptly in April, I couldn't let myself get worked up over it. I was focusing on making a safe space for Spot and myself. Since Entitled Bro has moved out, my mother has made the house her own, and I'm so proud to say it is finally everything she envisioned it to be. The house looks immaculate now that Entitled Bro is no longer crowding her space. She is very proud of all of her home improvement projects and always has something new that she wants to show me when I visit. She seems so happy. The only thing that concerns me is how uncorrectably friendly Entitled Bro has been acting with her since he moved out. More on that later. Spot is doing so much better since we went to live with my fiancé and his 2 German shepherds. I think my fiancé's dogs understood that Spot is older and not quite as athletic as them, but that didn't stop him from trying to keep up with them. After moving in, Spot's favorite pastime includes running around to the huge yard, lying in the sun, and eating the little tasty nuggets that the chickens leave in the yard. If you have read this far and are wondering what took me so long to update, I do apologize for the delay, but I have a good reason. My fiancé and I bought our first home. We fell in love with a tiny little house in our ideal area and had been working on renovating it. I am very pleased to announce that we moved in last month. And if that wasn't good enough news for you, here's the biggest announcement of all: we got married. After all the hard work we put into the house, we knew it was the perfect place for us to tie the knot. We invited his dad, his siblings, and my mom over, and we had a quick ceremony in our living room, amongst unpacked boxes and mismatched furniture. It was perfect. But this wouldn't be an entitled people post without some entitled bro stories. Here are some of the highlights, for lack of a better term, of what I've dealt with since my last post. For the 3 to 4 weeks after I moved out, Entitled Bro would not stop asking, where is Spot? Where's my dog, over and over. I just ignored him, but while I was silent, he said a lot of very revealing things, such as, I bet you won't bring Spot back because you're afraid I'll do the same thing to you, meaning taking off with Spot. I wanted to point out the whole reason I felt the need to remove Spot was because he threatened to take my dog without my permission, but I didn't waste my breath. At one point, he got so worked up that he said, fine, don't tell me where Spot is, I'll find out, which only solidified my confidence that I'd made the right choice. A couple of months ago, he had information that I needed to help our aunt with a task. My aunt asked him to please send me the info so I could complete the task for her. He said he would but never sent me anything, despite how many times she reminded him. It got to the point where the deadline was getting close, so I had to call and text him multiple times. He refused to give me anything, saying I needed to apologize for being so rude because I had the audacity to ask him for the information. I decided to act fed up and told him, forget it, someone else can do it. I then asked my cousin Molly to text him, saying she was the one to contact instead. He sent the info to her instantly, and I had Molly forward the info to me. The look on his face when he later found out I was the one who took care of everything for my aunt was priceless. He enjoys having things to hold over my head. The final thing I will mention is entitled Bro, who was a nightmare for my mother until the day he moved out. He went through waves of giving my mom the silent treatment, then angrily hounding her for ruining his life, to having personal pity parties and saying things like he was so depressed and he didn't want to live anymore. My mom got so fed up that by his moving out day, she had no pity for him anymore, just secondhand embarrassment. But then he did something very strange. He was literally in the middle of yelling at her and blaming her for all his shortcomings when he suddenly broke down. He cried, saying he was so sorry for what he put her through, and all he wants is to be loved by his mom and sister. He asked, "What will you do if I ended myself?" My mom said she thought it was a miracle from God, and I tried to gently ask her if it wasn't more likely that it was just a manipulation tactic. She said she is choosing to believe that this is a sign that her son is finally changing for the better. I find it very hard to believe. So now, he acts as if he was never the hell spawn that plagued our home for 8 years, and my mom is so happy because she thinks that now her son is reformed. I think it's more likely that he is just trying to stay in her good graces because he wants to use her as a safety net. My mom claims she would never take him back in unless it was a true emergency, but I don't know about that. That is the only thing about entitled Bro that makes me uneasy to this day. Other than that, I have no interest in dealing with him and will not be including him in anything. He does not have my address, and my relatives know not to share it with him. Although I have had to deal with a lot of drama these past few months, I am so relieved that I left that tumultuous home life when I did. If I hadn't, I wouldn't have a safe space for myself, for Spot, I wouldn't finally have a home of my own with someone who loves me completely, and I wouldn't have married the sweetest, most supportive man I've ever met. I am so grateful to be able to write this happy update on my couch in my home, with my husband at my side and my sweet Spot laying his head on my lap. Thank you again for being here for me and for waiting so patiently for an update. I hope it was worth the wait. Thank you. Well, OP, congratulations on your marriage, on the house, on your happiness, on saving Spot, and also congratulations to your mom. Seems like everyone is doing better, and hopefully, your brother is actually reformed, but as you say, I'm not so sure about that. So, here's wishing you the best in the future. OP, thanks for sharing, and take care. And that's it for today's stories.